Amit Mehtaji, IFS, who is currently acting as the High Commissioner of India to Australia. He is from Agra, Uttar Pradesh, from the 2007 batch of IFS officer. He has previously served as Deputy Secretary in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in Delhi under the Central Staffing Scheme. Sir, I know it's a Saturday and I know you were pressed for time, but I could see that you were already here at 9:55 India time and you were making sure all the audio video were up and running. So really appreciate your commitment and for taking time to address us. I would like to now hand it over to you to kindly share your thoughts on Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that generous introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Namaste and good day. I'm delighted to be part of this wonderful event today, and I thank Vishwa Hindu Parishad, University of Adelaide, Indian School of Business, and Invest India for coming together to organize this seminar on the India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. First of all, please allow me to acknowledge the vibrant Indian diaspora in Australia, which is growing at a fast pace, not only in numbers, but also in significance, in terms of their contribution to all walks of the Australian society. Indeed, Indian diaspora and leaders of the community, such as Sri Rajendra Panditji, are the flag bearers and a crucial pillar of the India-Australia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Today's topic is very timely, as it comes especially at this historic juncture in the economic relationship between India and Australia. As you all know, the Indus ECTA has come into effect from the 29th of December of last year, and we are now engaged in discussions for an even more ambitious comprehensive economic cooperation agreement. Both the prime ministers have concluded very successful bilateral visits, and there is never before momentum in two-way exchanges of ministerial and high-level visits. We're now looking forward to receiving Honorable Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, in India again in September for the G20 Leaders Summit. We are proud of the stupendous achievements accomplished by both the countries in such a short span of time, since the elevation of relationship from strategic partnership to comprehensive strategic partnership in June of 2020. There has not been a better time in history of these two countries to create vibrant democracies of the Indo-Pacific region. We often say India and Australia are natural partners. However, all along it has been felt that the strong political relation needed to be translated into equally strong economic partnership. Indus ECTA provides this partnership its much needed economic dimension. Indus ECTA is a key enabler to leverage the economic complementarities and unlock the potential of this partnership. As you all know, ECTA has resulted in zero duty on 96% of the India's exports in value to Australia immediately and zero duty on 85% of Australia's exports to India. Since Australian exports are more concentrated in raw materials and intermediaries, labor-intensive industries in India will get a boost with cheaper raw materials and shall make them more competitive, in particular for sectors like steel, aluminium, fabric, garments, etc. First time, India has included tariff reduction on wine under any FTA. I'm sure the wine exporters of South Australia would welcome the access to a large Indian market for their quality wines. Our bilateral trade is booming. As reported in media last month, India-Australia bilateral trade has increased from Australian dollar 34 billion in 2021 to Australian dollar 46.5 billion in 2022. It is our expectation that ECTA will further result in quantum jump in the two-way trade. Wine exporters from South Australia would be particularly happy to be able to reap benefits from increased access to a large Indian market for the quality wines. The agreement will also facilitate exchange of students, professionals, and tourists between the two countries, which will further strengthen the people-to-people ties. It will facilitate Indian chefs and yoga professionals entry into Australian professional market, as well as working holiday visas for young professionals from India. The agreement brings certainty for post-study work visa for Indian students. Apart from traditional sectors of the economy, our commitment to foster cleaner, greener, and more sustainable development offers new opportunities for Australian businesses in the field of renewable energy, in fueling India's solar power and EV revolution through the export of critical minerals like lithium, as well as enhancing cooperation in the development of green hydrogen systems and low emission technologies. India has come a long way since those years of red tape and license raj when anyone wanted to do business in India would have to navigate a sea of complex processes and arduous procedures. Over the course of last 8 years or so, guided by Honorable Prime Minister Modi's principal vision of reform, perform, and transform, India has pushed through a lot of economic reforms, which have catapulted the country to some 80 spots up in the ease of doing business. We've repealed, reformed, and redrawn many of the outdated laws, streamlined processes for new businesses, thrown open a host of sectors for foreign direct investment, and launched schemes to incentivize manufacturing and exports. All these reforms have resulted in India improving consistently in all economic parameters. India is expected to be the fastest growing large economy for decades to come. A market size of close to 1.4 billion, with a rapid and expanding middle class, holds great value and has made India one of the most attractive destinations for FDI. Overall, an exciting area of cooperation awaits businesses in both countries. It's new India today with vastly improved ease of doing business, competitive factors of production, innovative, talented, and ambitious. The government of India is a welcoming and facilitating partner. I put it to you, with a little more attention paid to India, Australian companies can and will profit handsomely. A closer economic integration will be a win-win proposition for both countries. I again thank for inviting me to participate in the webinar, and I look forward to hearing the views of Honorable Jing Lee, Deputy Leader of Opposition from South Australia, and Dr. Shrikant Shinde, Honorable MP from Maharashtra. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Sumit Mehta ji. It reminds me of what Albert Einstein said. When two minds meet, I know I'm not exactly telling the words that he quoted, but when two minds meet, invariably a third new mind is born. Now, after listening to you, the kind of achievements that has already taken place and the kind of collaboration that is going to happen when two countries meet to collaborate, I can only imagine what might happen. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And I can see our Honorable Member of Parliament from South Australia, Jin Lee, has joined. Ma'am, if you are online, can you please have the video on, because I can definitely see your window, because now as an MC, I'm in a dilemma whether to be introducing you or the next professor.
Just hold on. I have problems technically with this Zoom. Just
all good. All good. In fact,
my apologies.
No, you don't have to be. I understand that you were pressed for time and you are running between meetings. So as you are trying to get the video, yes, great. We can see you there. Awesome. So let me quickly take this opportunity to introduce you. So we have with us Honorable Jin Lee, who is the Member of Parliament, South Australia. She is now currently the Deputy Leader of Opposition in the Legislative Council, Shadow Minister for Multicultural South Australia, Shadow Minister for Tourism and Hospitality. In recognizing her extensive and wide-ranging experience, capabilities, and tenacious commitment, she was appointed and she has got these two responsible positions. And I was also, as I said, the Deputy Leader of the Opposition since April 2022. She has proudly served as an Assistant Minister to the Premier in the Marshall Liberal government from 2018 till 2022. She is a champion for multiculturalism in the state of South Australia and has worked relentlessly in modernizing the landmark multicultural legislation that will shape the future advancement of multiculturalism and interculturalism in South Australia. Ma'am, it is so great to have you here. I understand you were running between meetings and it's a Saturday, but it is great that finally you have made it. We would love to hear your thoughts on ECTA, which is Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement between Australia and India. Over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Raj Pandey, for inviting me to be a guest speaker or one of the speaker anyway. It's great to join so many dignitaries today. Thank you so much for hosting this particular webinar through the Hindu Economic Forum, looking at the exciting new frontier when you're looking at India. Our history with Australia and India has been long-standing, and that commitment now just opening up further economic cooperation and trade opportunities, not just for not just really for Australians, because Australia is such a multicultural country. When you're looking at Australia as a whole, we have so many different diverse communities want to do business with India. And I think with that heritage, with our ongoing commitments, both government to government, business to business, and more importantly, I think individually as well, when you are running this particular forum through the Hindu economic forums, we're looking at people sharing the same, I suppose, philosophy, that integrity, that really is a true strength to opening up the doors, because you only want to do business or to do trading when you trust somebody. And I think sharing that faith and sharing that integrity and wanting to open up the doors, I think that is really crucial. I just thank you for the introduction earlier. Just a bit of background about myself, in addition to that, just a little bit, is that I was born in Malaysia. I came to Australia in 1979. I've been here for more than 40 years. And Australia, particularly South Australia, have so much. We need to tap that opportunities and further that bilateral relationship. And I think I am very fortunate that we have a very strong, committed Indian community in South Australia. And that just upon layers and layers of foundation, because using the network we currently have in South Australia, I think we need to tackle this collaboratively, and more such a web seminar hopefully we'll be able to bring a whole conference together, hopefully in South Australia first, and then take people on an outbound mission to India. Because if that can happen through this particular forum, I think it's wonderful to be able to build those relationships further and improve and enhance our economic opportunities. I'll leave it there, because I know that you've got so many exciting speakers and there are going to be Q&A. Maybe I would make sure the next time I come on your webinar, I'm able to have that dialogue with other participants that will help to drive this economic agenda further.
Sure, definitely. Thank you, Honorable Jin Lee. Yes, the next baby step would be probably having another webinar, which will be more interactive. But after listening to your words, I believe it's high time that we start planning and having a conference, as you said, where we can all come together and meet in person. Now, I lived in Australia before COVID for 10 years. I'm still a resident, but now I have called Bengaluru, India as my base. So when I was in Australia, every second person I was meeting was from a different continent. And here in India, every 100 kilometers we travel, we meet people from different culture. Yes, we have that vibrant multiculturalism in both these countries. And I was telling His Excellency Sunit Ji, when two minds meet, a third invariable mind is born. But imagine when two countries meet with an intention to cooperate, rather than snatching the piece of the pie, how about we think we expand the size of the pie? I think even sky is not the limit. Once again, thank you so much, Honorable Jin Lee, for taking time and squeezing in spite of your busy schedule to address this gathering. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. Have a great webinar, everybody.
Thank you so much. Well, we are still waiting for Dr. Srikanth Shinde. I believe he might be joining anytime soon. However, I would now like to take this opportunity to welcome and introduce Professor Apurva Jayadekar, who is the Assistant Professor of Finance, Indian School of Business. Now, Professor, you will have to correct me. I had to go to and fro on Google saying that, are you an assistant professor or a professor? Are you an assistant professor or a professor? I said, let me play safe by using the title professor. Now, he has done his MA in economics from Delhi School of Economics in 2008, and he has done his PhD in economics from Boston University in 2016. So everything to do with economics. He was a research director at the Center for Advanced Financial Research and Learning, a research outfit funded by RBI, which is Reserve Bank of India, from 2016 to 2019. His policy research is published in the RBI Mint Street memo and he has presented the same at the Monetary Policy Committee multiple times. His academic research areas include mutual funds, asset pricing, international economics, and banking. He also actively writes newspapers, articles for Mint, Financial Express, and Economic Times. Now, usually I get an opportunity to know there are these kind of people who are so dedicated in one particular field, but it's really an honor when I meet them. Of course, I would love to meet them in person, but still, I'm e-meeting you in on this particular virtual platform. Thank you so much once again. I know you are pressed for time, and I was told that you might have a flight to catch immediately. So, without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to you to kindly address the gathering, and I will be sharing my screen because I know that you had certain slides that you wanted to share with us.
Right. I can share it from my side as well, so that I can shift the slide.
Okay. Okay. In that case, I'll immediately stop.
Yeah.
So that you'll have the control of sharing the slides.
Okay.
Over to you, Professor Apurva.
Thank you. Thanks for the generous introduction, and thanks organizers for having me as one of the speakers. I'm greatly honored to speak in front of His Excellency and all the dignitaries joining from both India and Australia, and the business community who is eagerly waiting to listen to some of the fine prints in the ECTA between India and Australia. So let me just share my screen quickly. I have few slides to kind of talk through.
Yes, the slides are visible.
Yeah, okay, good. So without spending too much time on the peripheral talk, let me go straight into the material that I wanted to share. India and Australia both are growing their free trade agreements with multiple nations, suggesting that both of these countries are quite serious in trying to diversify the trading partners as well as expand the trades, both exports and imports of important goods and materials. Over the last 5 years, India has signed 13 FTAs, as you can see, and Australia too is expanding its network of treaties. Australia-UK FTA came into was signed quite recently. Australia-Indonesia, SEPA, and Australia-Peru agreement have been signed a couple of years back. And so both of these countries have demonstrated serious intentions to build strategic partnerships and expand the network of the exports and imports. If you see a little bit about the bilateral ties, trade ties between India and Australia, you can see that both Indian exports to Australia and Australian exports to India have grown over the last couple of years before the ECTA was signed, which kind of suggests that after ECTA, the momentum will be carried further through, and hopefully the $30 billion US dollars of the total trade between these two countries can be expected to go beyond $50 billion in next half a decade, as many experts have already predicted. And this is coming from both not only goods, but also services. And you can see that for India, out of $12 billion of exports they are doing to Australia, $8 billion are roughly coming from goods, $4 billion from services. Australian service exports to India are slightly lower as a percentage of total exports to India, and that will present a big scope of improvement under ECTA. And as I will touch upon, ECTA provides a good framework for services exports between both the countries. Just a brief, these few slides just gives an introduction of where two countries stand. And you can see that for Australia, which is on the left hand, for India, which is on the left-hand side of my slides, Australia is a 16th or 17th largest partner of India. And for Australia, India is like I think, 4th or 5th largest partner or 6th largest partner in terms of exports. And so basically both the countries are very important to each other, and more than these numbers, as you can see the type of exports that happen from India to Australia, and especially, and on the next slide, I will show from Australia to India. India is exporting wide variety of goods and services to Australia, starting from fuels, chemicals, textiles, and you can see even like vegetables and some of the labor-intensive export items like plastic, rubber, wood, footwear. Those are textiles is quite high, 13% export share. But you would like footwears and some of the other labor-intensive sectors to move up the ladder, because that's where the employment generation is going to come up from. And ECTA provides an excellent framework for that, as I will explain in the next few slides. And if you reverse the side, what Australia exports to India, it's mainly dominated by fuels and rich minerals and metals, and so it's mostly concentrated in raw materials, and therefore manufacturing sector in India is quite deeply dependent upon Australian imports, and therefore the partnership between India and Australia, and this point was also mentioned by His Excellency, this is a very strategic and important partnership, and to the extent these raw materials can arrive in India at lower cost, because now the duties will be eliminated on most of these items from currently 5 or 10% duties in India. The input prices for Indian manufacturers are going to go down, and that will also improve the export performance for the Australian manufacturers. I think this is just the slide summarizing most of the things that I talked. Just a bit of, and as an economist, I would always like to think about how open the two economies are. And you can see Australia and India both have done excellently well in terms of how much tariffs they have reduced over last decade or so. And Indian tariff rates are 5 to 6% now, which are globally competitive. Australia has done excellent. They were already at 6% tariff rates on an average at the start of the century, but now the tariff rates Australia is charging for most of the products entering into Australian territory is like roughly 1%. And so Australia has demonstrated, and so has India demonstrated the intention to be free trade economies. Given that both of them are at different economic stages, higher tariff rates for India and Australia can be explained through that prism. But this chart shows that both the countries are quite serious in terms of opening up the borders. So now let me, after this brief introduction, Chinmay, it would be good if you can tell me how much time I have and if I'm overrunning. So.
No, we are on time, and I think we are good to continue, Professor. So with the
okay,
slides
great.
Sharing and the informative information that you're giving, I think you can please continue with.
Sure. I'll take 7-8 more minutes and then Sure. So now let me go to ECTA, the specific provisions and sectors and some of the opportunities. There were also few questions that were shared with me in terms of coming from business community. I've tried to address a couple of them earlier that were shared with me in this presentation. So the highlights for the ECTA, this is India's first ECTA with a large developed country after almost a decade. And this enhances India-Australia partnership beyond Quad and supply chain resilience initiative that was, I think, that is developed between India, Australia, and Japan. And both the countries are offering broad access to market to each other's exporters. Australia is offering zero duty access to, I think, almost 100% of its tariff lines. 98% of the tariff line becomes zero duty tariff line even from day one of the agreement. And this covers over 6,000 line items. This includes important sectors from Indian context, which are gems, stones, textile, leather, footwear, furniture, and some of the labor-intensive sectors. India is also offering substantial wider market access to Australian exporters, preferential access to over 70% of tariff lines. 40% are going to be zero duty items from day one, and 30% will be phased out over the next few years as specified in the schedules. And this is going to include exports from Australia to India of raw materials, coal, mineral ores, and even wines. And this is one of the important highlights of this treaty, that some of the substantial raw materials will get cheaper for Indian exporters. So let's talk a little bit about what Australia has offered under the treaty. in a specific, ECTA gives a good push for labor-intensive sectors and exports from India. This also includes electrical machineries and motor vehicles, trucks, and types of cruise ships. So even big engineering goods are going. I mean, apart from this machinery sector, engineering goods will also get a good push. Most of the duties currently at 5% will be slashed to 0%. So that will bring India in competitive terms, especially in textile sector, where China, Vietnam, Indonesia, for example, are supplying a lot of material to Australia and Australian consumers. I think that's where a slashing of duty from 5% to 0% would make a big difference, because 5% is quite a margin to have in competitive sectors like textile. One of the sectors that has been in media as well highlighted is the leather market, big Australian leather market. But India's share is right now quite limited. Most of the share is dominated by China, and a slashing of the duties on leather is going to give good push for exports of leather from India too. The only thing I must, this could be important for the business leaders who are listening to the talk right now, is that Australia, as I already mentioned, is quite low tariff economy, and it has reduced its custom duties for most products from 5% from 5% to 0 for many other FTAs. And so I believe that India will also have to find a niche of a sector or two where they can exploit the ECTA quite competitively and try to expand its market. Indian tariffs are quite high on some of the products, around 30%. But under this ECTA, Indian government has agreed to slash duties to 0% on some of the very important line items. And this is a big, I think, big win under the ECTA for Australian exporters. And this includes exports in agri, especially exports of meat, fish, certain exotic vegetables. And if you're in India, you would know that I think these are very important items. Consumers are demanding them in big quantity, and the supply is always an issue. So I think there is a big scope for agri market. Wine exports to India duties will be reduced from 100% to 100% from 150% currently, and then 50% over the next few years, which is a big. This is, I think, for the first time under any ECTA that's happening. Coke fuels, oils of various varieties will attract 0% duties. That's one of the important exports from Australia to India, any which ways, which gets further push. Some of the sensitive items have been kept outside the ECTA framework. So I think, but I think there is plenty that India has offered in terms of strategic relationship between India and Australia. And not only goods, services also gets pushed. ECTA is going to has got Australia is going to offer has already offered 135 subsectors in services, including key areas like IT, ITES, health, education, and so on and so forth. Extended visas for Indian students, especially in STEM and IT sector. Extended visa permits for intercorporate transferees, independent consultants, as well as Indian chefs and yoga teachers. I think that human mobility is quite important in any economic ties, and that is a very good development under ECTA. India too has agreed to provide market access to Australia in items such like services like business services, communication services, construction and engineering services. So as I mentioned, services exports, there is a big scope for improvements, especially from Australian side, and the ECTA provides a good framework for that. One of the important things that has happened is Australian Parliament has ratified the laws and have agreed to amend the taxation laws to avoid the double taxation on offshore income earned by Indian firms when they provide technical services to Australian customers. This was a major relief because Australia's full federal court in 2018 had declared otherwise. And therefore, this provides relief to Indian firms who are providing services to their own affiliates sitting in Australia and so on and so forth. So the taxation clarity has come as a way under the ECTA, and that's one more major development which takes away some uncertainty in the taxation. So this is a little bit broad understanding of ECTA. Now, in the last part of my presentation for 3-4 minutes, I'm going to talk about two specific questions that were asked. One is China's role and how the ECTA is going to help. And the second one is about pharma. So let me talk a little bit about China's role. So as we know, China introduced some punitive measures on Australian exports after geopolitical tensions arose between the two countries. And some of the important sectors for Australian exporters got hit, including wine, barley, other agri products. Coal was targeted under anti-dumping policies. Iron ore was kind of left out of the purview of sanctions because I believe China is greatly dependent upon iron ore from Australia, and so they did not want to hurt their own interest here. But what has happened is actually sanction helped Australian exporters diversify. Example of a coal is an eye-opener example. After China banned Australian coal imports, Chinese factories tapped because they needed coal for their own manufacturing. So Chinese factories tapped Indonesian as well as Russian coal suppliers. But that in turn opened up gaps in coal markets, especially in India, Japan, and South Korea. And Australian exporters have been very agile to diversify away from China and export the coal to some of these new markets. I have a good chart here that shows how because sanctions were put in 2020. So this chart roughly goes from 2018-19 to 2021, and you can see that the red line, the Chinese exports from Australia of coal to China went down, but then Australia immediately gained market access in India, South Korea, and Japan. And I think the ECTA with coal reduction, the reductions on the duties on coal and other important minerals, I think is going to enhance this momentum even further, and that's kind of very heartening. So some of the trade relationships that Australia has built with other countries over, and especially with India over the last few years, even before ECTA was signed, is going to be of importance here. And you can see in general also exports to China into like second half of 20 went down, but exports from Australia to other countries went up, rest of the world. And so I think and there has been good coverage in media talking about how Australian exporters were agile enough to come out of the Chinese sanctions and diversify their sources. So in a sense, I think that the ban kind of helped Australia to diversify both in terms of geographies as well as products. That's a bit on China. Last point about pharma. There was a specific question about pharma. So Australian pharma market is a big market, $17 billion by some estimates. India's exports to Australia in pharma sectors are roughly $400 million. ECTA removes duties on certain drugs as well as certain surgical equipment. So that's one important area where exports from India can grow. But more importantly, ECTA provides for fast tracking of clearances for pharma products by utilizing reports from comparable regulatory authorities like US, UK. Remember that India's pharma exports are mostly going into tightly regulated markets, and therefore India has got great number of US FDA approved facilities, and therefore a certification coming from some of the competent regulatory authorities elsewhere is going to be allowed as a clearance under the ECTA framework, which is going to fast track some of the exports from in the drug markets from India to Australia. There is a little bit of a caveat that the generic and the patented drug pricing in Australia is not so different as it is in the US. And therefore, growing generic drug market exports is not quite easy. But I think ECTA provides a very important step by clearing, reducing the number of steps required and the time requirements for the exports. And I think over the next decade, we would see massive improvements coming from Indian pharma sector to Australian pharma sectors. So I have talked about all good points, and because there are all good points about this ECTA, there is only one thing I would like to highlight, though, that if you compare Australia's some of the other economic partnership agreements with Peru, for example, they contain specific chapters on investments. Though ECTA provides for investment chapter, investment framework, not very concretely under this ECTA. For example, Australia has lowered the screening requirements for foreign investors coming from Peru, has offered some protection of invested funds, repatriation guarantee, bilateral tribunals to solve investment issues, and so on and so forth. So that would have been one of the points that ECTA could have handled. But I think India, from India's perspective, I think Indian government is trying to keep both of these things separate, the investment vehicles as well and the trade on one side. So given that intention, I think this agreement does excellent in terms of providing broader market access, and hopefully over the next 5 years or so, we would see massive improvements in the trade happening from both these sectors, from both these countries to each other, apart from cultural ties and strong political ties that we are seeing that have been developing over the last few years. So I'm all for positive for this agreement. And again, thanks once again the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I'm happy to share the slides with the participants if organizers want, and looking forward for future interactions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Apurva, for sharing and giving us a comprehensive presentation. And also, it's very generous of you to offer that we can share the slides. I was about to ask, I know you have a flight to catch, but do you think you can quickly answer one question that one of our participants
Sure, of course.
So,
of course. If it is, I mean, if I'm able to, but let's see, what's the question?
No, it's not about who will be the next prime minister. It's from Mr. Chetan. Is there any market access provided to Indian companies in the area of defense space manufacturing? So it's a specific question that Mr. Chetan has asked. In the area of defense space.
I think one needs to, there has been duty reductions on from India to Australia, you're saying, or from?
For the Indian companies to Australia.
To Australia. No, I think I'll have to refer to some of the schedules, a specific schedule, because I did not, I don't focus a lot on defense sector myself. So I'll have to defer this question to, I think, the other panelists on this one. I'm really sorry about it, but I think the agreement is quite clear. So if one goes to the schedule of tariffs and see the HS codes, I think you will see the base rate and if the duties are being eliminated or not. So that's quite easy to do. Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you for at least telling us where we can find that information.
Yeah, no, but sorry about it. I don't know.
No, you don't have to be. You don't have to be. I know it's a very specific question, and I can only imagine how big the ETC agreement might have been. And then me doing all the studies. Now, again, we were not going through all the textbook, right? So I don't expect every point that you would have referred. But thank you once again. I know you have a flight to catch, so feel free to be online in case if there is still time, or else. On behalf of Australia India Marketing Service and every participant here, thank you once again for sharing a comprehensive presentation. And yes, we will be sharing your slide, as you mentioned, with our participants. So thank you once again, Professor Apurva. Namaste.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you.
So now let's move on to our next distinguished speaker, Dr. Upasana Diwan, who is the Associate Professor at Rukmini Devi Institute of Advanced Studies. She has over 17 years of teaching experience and is a keen researcher. So even after 17 years, she's still very keen to research in the area of customer-based brand equity valuation. Her expertise, here are her expertise in accounting, financial management, international finance, security analysis, trade finance, and trade agreements, which is supported by many publications and books. She also has a patent. Yes, she has a patent in her name for a finance calculating device from the Australian government, IP Australia. She is also a soft skills trainer and is actively involved in conducting management development and faculty development programs. While I was going through her LinkedIn profile, she has also mentioned she is very keen in helping students, in mentoring them and training them on soft skills. As we all know, soft skills is not always soft, and that is why we need experts like Dr. Upasana to guide those students. So ma'am, over to you. Thank you so much for being here today. We would love to hear your thoughts. Now, quickly, do you want me to share your slides, or will you be doing at your end?
I'll do it myself. Thank you.
Okay, great. So over to you.
Yes, yes, great. Thank you. To begin with, Rajendra ji, namaskar to you all the way from India, and of course to His Excellency Mr. Sumit Mehta. And I can see on my screen my fellow colleagues who've been listening very patiently from University of Adelaide, and of course to all the other dignitaries. Thank you very much for having us over and giving us this platform. I'll quickly start sharing my screen. Yeah. Okay, so I would just want someone to tell me if you can see my screen, please.
Yes, it's visible, ma'am.
Okay, great. So I think to begin with, this entire concept of India-Australia FTA sounds it sounds very intriguing. It sounds very interesting. But actually, when you get into the nitty-gritties of it, you realize that, oh, good Lord, it's not that easy anyways. But to begin with, if anybody wants to know about ECTA, so I feel that there's an FTA portal. And this FTA portal, you can also Google it. It's called ftaportal.dfat.gov.au. So if at all any trader or somebody interested in commerce and industry wants to find out that what all exactly is going on under ECTA and what all are the the types of products along with the HS code that is related to that particular product, can go to this website and find it out. I repeat it once again. It's ftaportal.dfat.gov.au. So to begin with, my fellow colleague just mentioned about the entire World Trade Network map, and as you can see, India and Australia are one of the largest countries along with the one with the main trading countries, including the EU. Now, before I get into the ECTA and the nitty-gritties of it, I would like to mention a couple of things. Why India and Australia, and why trade all of a sudden is so important? That's basically because we are two countries. We are like, we have like-minded values, and of course, we are parliamentary democracies. We have backed up by expanding economic engagements, long-standing people-to-people ties, and of course, the Commonwealth tradition. So, which is why this ECTA gives us even much more larger perspective and scope. Now, I tried plotting it onto a graph, giving all the data that we had from different websites of India and Australia. So we can see that, Australia has a large net trade with India, and this trade is largely in minerals, in chemicals, and precious metals. Now, there's another point of defense, which was just asked some time back. India, as such, has reserved areas of defense particularly, and does not want a lot of because we are going by make in India, etc. So we don't want a lot of areas to be covered in defense. But recently, because of the prime minister's engagement the world over, Modi ji has been to different countries. So the recently engagement when the prime minister had come over, we are opening many areas of defense and lowering taxation, for example, in steel, chemicals, which ultimately contribute to the defense systems in India. So that's the latest take on that. Now, as far as these two countries are concerned, Australia is the 17th largest trading partner in India, and India is Australia's 9th largest trading partner. So you see, it's vice versa. One is at 17th position, and the other is at 19th, is at the 9th position. So that's the status of the current bilateral trade, which means there is immense scope for both the countries to push this entire statistics to a much better degree. Now, what exactly is India Australia ECTA? I'm sure we've heard a lot about that already, since we've had speakers ahead of me, and we know what its objectives are: to increase trade by certain numbers. But I decided that let me put this entire ECTA into different categories for better understanding. So, this is in this part of the agreement, there's something that is called rules of origin, trade in services, technical barriers, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and it is something called double taxation avoidance agreement. So for those of you who are interested in accounting and finance and interested in import and export, there's a lot of protection that is given to the importers and the exporters on behalf of both the countries, which is a major objective of the ECTA. Um, quickly. So benefits to trade in goods. I tried, like I said, dividing into different categories. Australia offers zero duty access to 100% tariff lines from India and zero duty on 96.4% value of Indian exports. This is to be done almost immediately. At present, most of these items actually were attracting a tariff in the scale of 4 to 5% import duty in Australia. So, which means if we are exporting, that is 4 to 5% import duty in Australia. And this largely excludes areas like agricultural item, fisheries, footwear, leather, furniture, jewelry, sports, railway wagons, defense in certain items, pharmaceutical, electricals, etc. So, which means that if we are trading in these categories under the ECTA, it will be beneficial to us to cut down the export duty from 5% to 4% to 3% to almost 0%. So, if you're a trader in this area, the ECTA will help you. Apart from this, there's, as far as the exporters are concerned, I mean, we all know by now that, in sectors like steel, aluminium, fabric, garments, etc., it's going to benefit the exporters. But there's another thing which I would like to mention, that there's something that is called export credit insurance. And this is done to protect the exporters and the importers of any kind of products and services against risk of non-payment by a foreign buyer. So in other words, the ECI, if you want, you can always read about the ECI, that's called export credit insurance. So this actually reduces the payment risk associated with doing business internationally, and if the exporter or the importer is into a non-payment mode, so it allows the foreign buyers to go ahead with the ECTA, minimizing the risk of non-payment. So that is one of the biggest benefits of getting into an ECTA, which reduces the non-payment risk and avoids any kind of arbitrage between the countries in a vigorous global market. So this is a major gain for both the countries as a part of this agreement. Then we come to the sector of pharmaceuticals. I think by now we agree that India and Australia are on loggerheads with China as far as trade is concerned, right? So I think pharmaceuticals is one big area in which we were getting imports for our items from China, and suddenly because of the COVID, the that line has come to an end. It opens up trade between India and Australia, and this also includes the fast track approval of patented generic and other medicines, which was not there earlier, and it also includes various assessment inspections, etc., according to the approvals. Textiles. So if you are a trader in the area of bed linen, bath linen, toilet, kitchen, curtains, I have somehow made an effort to pinpoint the item so that it becomes clear. Textiles, then what kind of textiles? Pillow covers, quilts, comforters, cotton bags, ready-made garments. Because I think all of us would now know that even in our neighborhood, there are a lot of people who do small business. This is called the MSME sector, medium, small, micro, medium, and small enterprises that all of us are have a new startups in. So if you have something you're dealing in textiles, it's certainly it gives you protection from any kind of customs duty. And of course it creates more employment for 40,000 persons per year, like the data here says. But let me tell you, the data is only was only at that point in time. It is increasing as we speak. Regarding engineering products, as my fellow colleague has also mentioned before me, so the products include flat and value added iron and steel products, scientific and medical instruments, transport equipment, electrical machinery. Now, obviously, a trader would have a question that what do you mean when you say electrical and electrical machinery? So this is why you need to go to the website that I mentioned, and in every item that you want to check, they will have an HS code. Next to that HS code, there will be a certain duty that is written. So it's absolutely not possible to remember each item and the duty connected to it, which is why for deep in-depth study related to your business, you need to check out what type of items contribute to your business and the export duty or the import duty relevant to it. gems and jewelry. They also attract a customs duty of 5% in Australia. And of course, with an elimination of this, it will become much better. There's also something that I would like to tell you, that the government of India has actually been very successful in facilitating gems and jewelry trade in the post-pandemic era. And especially India and Australia have a significant trade with 1.3 USD billion dollars only in the year 21 and 22. So imagine the kind of scope that is involved here. The key commodities exported to Australia are plain gold jewelry, studded jewelry, and cut and polished diamonds. The main commodities which are imported from Australia, that India imports from Australia, are gold and silver bars. So it's not as if gold and silver per se, these are items. We import gold and silver bars and we export studded jewelry, diamond jewelry, cut and polished diamond jewelry. So that those are the important key points. Other than this, leather and footwear. So this elimination of duty, like I said, coming to service, for example, chefs and yoga teachers, these points have already been covered by Sir, and he says that Australia has given an annual quota of 1,800 professional Indian traditional chefs and yoga teachers who can enter the country. And that's not it. The stay is permissible for a period of up to 4 years with the possibility of further stay. Now, this is absolutely mind-boggling. Somebody who's doing his culinary skills and also in the area of yoga, which India specializes in, this is a big thumbs up for the entire sector. Post-study work visa, a big one-up for the students. Now, if you're a STEM specialist, and all Indian graduates and postgraduates in the area of STEM would actually be allowed to work in Australia. They have agreed to provide some opportunities to live, study, and work. And this is up to 2 years on completion of bachelor's degree, and you can stay up to 3 years of completion of master's degree, and then again stay up to 4 years after completion of doctoral degree. So I think ICT has taken a heads up in this area, and it works for both the universities of these two countries and for different institutes like ours per se, to be able to come up in any kind of collaboration of any university in Australia. Apart from this, there's mutual recognition agreements related to architecture, nurserying, and other now we can get into the details of this only if there's some specific questions. Then we have work and holiday visa, like I said, with multiple entries for 1,000 young students in the age group of 18 to 30 years for a period of 1 year. This suddenly makes me feel, wow, what if I was much younger and I was studying in this era? It would have been a wonderful opportunity for people like us to go across to different universities and do our research work, to present our papers, to do doctoral. So it's a very good opportunity for students of both the countries. Double taxation is one of the major keen areas, because double taxation is often a problem in IT industries, and they bear the brunt because of this issue, and hence this has been a face saver. In technology and IT services, like I said, this is largely related to Indian startups to help them scale up small and medium enterprises. And these the points here are relevant to all the skilled tech staff that generally we have as resource people. In healthcare also, apart from the tertiary care, other procedures such as dental surgery, knee replacement, cataract can also be carried out economically in India and of course Australia. To safeguard the interest of domestic industry, now what has been done? Because a lot of people are often worried that what would happen if I'm an exporter and if my interest is not safeguarded. Then there are very specific rules regarding of origin, that are called rules of origin, or sometimes we call it PSR, that's product rule of origin. Now it's an entire document, it's a 300-pager document, and it talks about the number of items which are covered under PSR, what kind of duty is covered under PSR, what is the meaning of country of origin, and of course there are tariff norms which have been substantially slashed down to ensure that all the exporters and the importers on both sides do not bear the brunt of any kind of arbitration clauses. The advantages of India Australia ECTA are immense. I'm not going to the details over here because if there's one thing that it steers us away from is the trade barrier of China, and it helps us to overcome an opportunity that was closed, but it suddenly opened different doors to different countries. yes, and apart from this, if there are some people who are in the business of sheep meat tariffs, these have also been eliminated. Wool is another beneficiary. Tariffs on wine, like Sir said, has also been reduced, and this is exactly $5 per bottle, reduced from 150% to 100%, a big up. And of course, avocados, onions, tomatoes, the prices in India have been skyrocketing because of the floods. So if you are a trader, then probably you can save a life and come in this time. And cherries, pistachios, cashews, blueberries. Now, see, for people like us, cherries, kidney beans, pistachios, cashews, because we are not into that trading business. But for agriculturists, for traders, these are big issues, and it gives a huge relief. The tariff of up to 30% have been slashed and almost eliminated over a period of 5 to 7 years. Apart from this, it will help the agro market. Now, before I end, there's something that I would like to say, and this is very important, that we have been involved in regional comprehensive economic partnership with ASEAN, and this would initially include 10 countries, and whom we already have free trade agreements with. But Indian manufacturers will really benefit, and because of this Indian-Australia pact. However, the extent of the final benefit will depend upon how we implement the procedure, what all challenges we have in the future, because for any pact to come into existence and then to be implemented takes a lot of intent from both the countries, not just the importers, the exporters, but also the government of both the countries, which we have seen has been a very positive sign in the latest time. So what India needs to do is put in place an effective financial and legal procedure, like I have been saying all this time. We have to improve on our ease of doing business scale, which we have done already, and of course increase the value added to its products and finished products so that we dominate the exports, and of course implement revenue enhancing measures so that any kind of inefficiencies have been reduced. So this is where I'll take your leave for the current time, and that's my email and phone number. I hope I have been able to do justice, sir, in all the time that was given to me, and I'll be happy to take any further questions to this.
Great. Upasana ma'am, I can safely say, yes, you have definitely done a great justice for the time that has been given to you. In fact, I have made few notes. Immediately after today's seminar, I'll be making a phone call first to my yoga teacher, another to one of my known contact who had expressed interest. Now he is pursuing his law and he wanted to do some internship in Australia, and definitely he's below 30. Yes, I also kind of envy that I'm above the age of 30 and I don't fall in that category. Another contact of mine who supplies quality fresh fruits and vegetables to 5-star hotels, and that market is always underserved, and definitely he would be interested. And of course, to the MSME contacts of mine, because when I shared about this particular seminar to them, many of them, they had this perception that, all this trade agreement happened between two countries. It is only for those multinational companies, but we MSMEs, no, there's nothing for us. But you have clearly broken down for each of those sectors. And I'm sure when they go to that respective website and that particular page, they can see all the information that is very much required. And especially the point you mentioned about export credit insurance, I think that's a big relief, because most of them, they will have this kind of a concern. What if the payment doesn't come from that particular supplier or a customer? So thank you so much once again, Upasana ma'am. Now we will quickly move on to our next speakers. And meanwhile, participants, if you have got any question, please type it in the chat box. If time permits, definitely we will be taking those questions. And I hope, Upasana ma'am, you are not in a rush. I hope that you can stay with us for some time.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So on that note, let's move on to our next university partner, University of Adelaide. We have Shirley Chung and Nischint Vora. Shirley is the Executive Director, Future Students at the University of Adelaide. And we have Nischint Vora, who is the Regional Manager, International Recruitment, Future Students, the University of Adelaide. Once again, I appreciate both of them for being here on time, well before time, and you had logged in. Thank you so much. Now, I know you have a presentation slide to share. Do you want me to share, or will one of you be taking care of that?
Would appreciate if you can help us to drive the slide, Chinmay.
Not at all an issue. So Give me 1 second. It's right here. Okay, it's coming up in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yes, I hope that the slide is visible.
Yeah,
If yes,
it
can you
works.
please take it from here.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. First, I definitely want to acknowledge Australia India Marketing Services for inviting us to attend the seminar. And also, I want to acknowledge His Excellence and also the fellow colleagues from India Institution. So we are from the University of Adelaide in Australia. So Chinmay already introduced us. I guess Nish and I, we're here today. We're actually going to cover 3 things in our presentation. We will be talking about, obviously, the University of Adelaide, and we will also talk about our international engagement and also activities in India. The last bit would be really about the benefits we are seeing for the education sector from the UCTA. I'm glad that the fellow colleagues from India Institution, they have provided such a thorough and useful analysis on the free trade agreement. So we will not go into that much detail, but we will be more focusing on the benefit in terms of academic collaboration. Next slide, please. So the previous one. The University of Adelaide is a very comprehensive university, and we are very research intensive as well. We are located in the city of Adelaide within the state of South Australia. So the Adelaide city itself is a very multicultural and also diverse city with more than 1.3 million of people. The university itself, if we can move to the next slide. We are actually Australia's 3rd oldest university. So next year, we'll be turning 150 years old. We are also a member of the Group of A. I know some of the people here might be familiar with the GOA in Australia. It is a very prestigious group of A research intensive university in Australia. So over the past 150 years, we have educated some excellent graduates, including 5 Nobel Prize winners and also 115 Rhodes Scholars as well. And I'm also proud to say that we are the first university in Australia to actually admit women to academic courses. Obviously, we have some excellent female graduates, including Australia's first Prime Minister, Miss Julia Gillard. Next slide, please. I know for our international audience, ranking is actually one of the important indicators to assess the quality of a higher education institution. So for the University of Adelaide, we have been constantly ranked in the top 100 globally. In the Times Higher Education World Ranking, we are sitting at number 88. In the recent QS World Ranking, we are at number 89. Also, we are sitting at 132 in the academic rankings of World University and also ranked number 74 in the US News Best Global Universities 2023. So moving on, yes. Our university actually have a very long history of international engagement. Since 2018, which is before COVID, we have educated more than 30,000 international students from more than 100 countries. So as of today, we have more than 160,000 alumni across the globe. In terms of the research space, we are well connected and we're working with some of the outstanding institutions in the world and also industry partners, government and sponsor agencies as well. In India, we are actually working with some of the outstanding institutions such as IIT Madras and also IIS Bangalore. Next slide, please. So this is really to show the audience, our international footprint. The red dots actually represent the country that we actually have formal agreements with. So At the moment, as of this year, we actually have established 400 formal agreements with 300 partners within about 40 countries. I guess this partnership has actually enabled us to kind of connect to the global world of ideas and also help us to enrich our curriculum and also student experience as well. So I will now hand over to Nish, and Nish is going to talk about our India engagement. Thanks, Nish.
Thank you, Shirley. Hello, everyone. Good morning to those attending from India, and good afternoon to friends and colleagues from Australia here. So just taking forward from what Shirley has mentioned, we've been actively engaging with India, and as an institution, we have, in terms of research, especially in critical areas for both India and Australia, we have close to about 589 co-publications with 12 active agreements. We have formal agreements with 10 partner institutions in India. Again, focus is more towards research and engagement. And as of Feb this year, we've had close to about 2,670 plus alumni who are from India as a whole. Next slide, please. Just to give a quick snapshot, because we were talking about trade and business and stuff, we also offer programs. One of the unique things that we do, and this feeds into our research and engagement across international trade as well, as we offer a lot of multidisciplinary programs. So some of the programs in accounting, finance, business analytics, an MBA, we offer both pre-experience and for those with experience as well, and a master's in finance. Next slide, please. We recently had a senior executive mission in India in late March, where we actually visited partner institutions, our business partners, and also with government bodies as well. A critical part of the engagement with India is based on the recent FTA agreement that has been signed, is more towards research in energy transition, critical minerals, and also critical aspects of urbanization as well. That's just a photo from one of the sessions that we had in India. This was in Delhi, actually. Next slide, please. In terms of the free trade agreement, what it does is, it, as colleagues from and other presenters have pointed out, is it basically helps to build a strong and positive momentum between both countries. We've seen actually a lot of bilateral movement in terms of the Prime Minister of Australia was in India recently, the Indian Prime Minister was in Australia, and there's also an upcoming visit from a government delegation to India as part of the G20 as well. It allows, also the agreement allows more greater mobility across human and resource capital as well. And the other aspect of this is, and as I think it was someone who pointed out, that it's not just the free trade agreement doesn't just help the big multinationals, but it basically gets to the grassroots level. It opens up avenues and opportunities for small traders, small to medium enterprises across the length and breadth of India, and also across the length and breadth of the diverse landscape in Australia as well. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it. That's from us. Actually, I just thought I'll also mention we have an Institute of International Trade as well that sits under the University of Adelaide, and we do a fair bit of work in consulting and research across trade policies and global challenges. That's it from us.
Thank you, Shirley and Nischint, for giving us a brief overview of the history of University of Adelaide and also some specific numbers. I was really wowed when I got to see that number, more than 30,000 students since 2018 from 140 countries. Now, I did my MBA at RMIT. Sometimes I teach as a guest lecturer over there. And whenever someone in India, they're asking me, Chinmay, I'm thinking of going to Australia, or my son or daughter wants to go to Australia, and can you recommend some universities? I used to always recommend universities in around Melbourne. So now definitely University of Adelaide will be on the list. And I tell them, more than the degree, more than what you study in the university, it is something that you learn from life outside the university is something invaluable. Just imagine, being part of an alumni where people from 140 countries are going to be there. Now that connection is going to be invaluable and it will be there for life. So once again, thank you, Shirley and Nischint, for giving us an overview, especially and specifically from the education perspective. I'm sure in times to come, there will be more stronger collaboration between the universities in India and as well as in Australia.
Thank you for having us. Nisha and I actually have other commitments, so we will have to leave for now.
Okay, so is there a possibility to take one quick question, or you'll have to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so there was a question around how can we partner with University of Adelaide? So should they be reaching out to you directly, Shirley?
100%. Yeah. We please feel free to reach out to us after the webinar.
Okay, so for those of you who are interested, reach out to AIMS, to Rajendra ji or someone who has shared the invite, and we'll make sure that you will get the contact details of Shirley and or Nish. So thank you once again, Shirley and Nish. I know you're pressed for time. Thank you once again. Namaste. Have a wonderful weekend.
Namaste.
Thank you. Pleasure.
As we still have our Professor Upasana online, probably we'll take few questions from the participants who have typed in or who have already sent few questions. So maybe Upasana ma'am, if you could answer a few of the questions, it would be great. One is around software. Now I come from the city of Bangalore, which is known as the IT capital of the world. Well, even though I'm an engineer, civil engineer, but still I don't know how to fix a laptop. But however, some of my contacts, they are in software business and they wanted to know how to explore software development opportunities in the government and also some private sector.
All right. As far as software development opportunities in trade in India, is that the question?
Upasana ma'am, I'm so sorry to stop you. Maybe you might have to adjust your mic.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
So what I'm asking is software opportunities in India?
No, software development that happens in India for the Australian clients.
For the Australian clients. Okay.
Yes.
See, again, software development in Australia. Now, this is a part of product and services. So software definitely is under the ECTA. There are benefits to ECTA. Now, the question is how to find out the opportunities. I'll say that, there are a lot of events that are being organized between India and Australia, such as these, which are a one step towards networking. Secondly, you can always visit the websites. For example, when you talk about, there's this website of India Australia IP, which talks about patents and copyrights and other things. So if you go to these websites, there are some email IDs listed there where you can ask them any questions for any kind of projects which would be available, and you'll be happily surprised that you'll get a very quick answer, and they will also forward your contact number or email ID to different people in that industry who would also be needing those kind of services. So I think as a beginning step, for example, in India there is Invest India. Similarly, in Australia you have something called australia.gov and IP Australia. Go to the website, start with there, and then one thing leads to the other. It's like a domino effect. Attend more events, do more networking, make more friends in events such as these, because the thing is that if you want to do serious business, you will have to step out of your room and find out what are the avenues of business. Business is not just about the product. Business is all about networking, and I'm sure you know that. I don't have to tell you. All I'm saying is that make friends in that particular industry, and somehow the diaspora is such that people are happy to help each other. You just need one beginning, and then one thing leads to the other.
Awesome. You reminded me of the quote, very famous quote when it comes to networking. Your network leads to your kind of network that you have. So thank you so much. In fact, one of my mentor, when I first arrived in Australia, he said, Chinmay, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So it's great to know that now we can go and ask in Invest India and many other forums, and it will not be a dead end. There will be someone either who is going to offer us or tell us what next we should be doing, or they might lead us to where we should be.
Absolutely. And there's also this website of Startup India. So when you go to the website of Startup India, you will see that once you register your business, you will be provided with mentorship. You will get industry mentors who will guide you on what should be your next step. So that's a very good hand holding that you're getting from the government of India for doing any kind of business.
Oh, that's really good to know. That's Startup India, right? Startup India.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Invest
Platform.
India,
Good.
Startup India website.
Invest India and Startup India. Great, thank you. Now I know we are kind of pressed for time. So any questions, please send it to us, and we'll make sure we will follow up with our expert panelist, and we will try to make sure you will get some kind of a solution. If not, they will be telling us where exactly you should be asking this question and whom you should be discussing with. Now, on that note, I would like to mention something that AIMS has been working, and that is B2B, business to business portal. So this will be coming soon. So it will be a portal which will be launched where you can list your products or service for free, and you can also explore the potential opportunities when it comes to importing and exporting and also overseas investment. The contact detail here is the email. It's contact@hefaustralia.com. Again, as I said, we'll be sharing the slides, we'll be sharing the details. So sure, you can get all these details and you can continue the conversation with Australia India Marketing Services. Now, here are some of the upcoming sessions that will be organized by AIMS. There are sessions that are planned around cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, space technology and collaboration, overseas investment. So if you visit the website, you can make sure that you keep yourself updated with the upcoming programs, or definitely there are emails and phone numbers that you can directly reach out to people. Rajendra Ji is here with us, and he will be more than happy to let you know what exactly are the next upcoming sessions where you can benefit and also explore further opportunities. So on that note, Rajendra Ji, with your permission or with your head nod, do you think we can go about concluding the session? So yes, thank you once again, everyone. I thoroughly enjoyed not only presenting and being an MC, but also listening to all these eminent speakers. And as I lived in Australia for 10 years and I'm now living here in India, I can definitely see the kind of collaboration when it happens. Well, it is already happening, but when it happens in our direct network, we can see how immensely people are going to benefit. So once again, I would like to thank His Excellency Sunit Mehta Ji. Thank you so much for joining us on time and staying till the end. It's indeed a pleasure to have you, and thank you for all the support. Even though Professor Aprup and Honorable Jin Lee and other speakers have left because of their prior commitments, I would like to thank them in spite of their absence at this particular point in time. I would like to thank Assistant Professor Upasana ma'am. Thank you so much for breaking down and clearly telling us where even MSMEs can go about finding opportunities with this particular collaboration. Again, I would like to once again thank each and every organizers who have been working on this seminar, getting this thing online. I know it's not an easy task. So Rajendra Ji, Gaurav Ji, Shivkumar Ji, and all the people at AIMS, Australia India Marketing Service, thank you so much. And I'm sure that there are many more programs that they will be planning, which will benefit the trade and also businesses in Australia and India. Thank you so much once again. Please take care. Have a wonderful weekend. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Apurva Ji. Really, and Chinmay Ji, thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Upasana Ji. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks. Bye.